What's up, everybody? It's the Hardy Construction. You can find us at hardyconstruction.tumblr.com, youtube.com/hardyconstruction, as well as facebook.com/the Hardy Construction with your host Comp and
Banana Peel Jones.
And today's film is
Zeram. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. Zeram? Zeram?
Zeram.
Zeram.
Zeram, 1991. Bounty hunters Iria and Bob travel to Earth to capture an escaped bioengineered fighting machine called Zeram, directed by Keita Amemiya, written by Keita Amemiya and etc. etc. There's an English version by Steve Kramer. Stars Yuko Moriyama, Kunihiro Ida, Yukijiro Hotaru.
You're actually doing pretty good. You're doing a pretty good job right now.
That's because of my fascination with the Japanese. Anyway, so this film is basically... What do you know about this film, Danny? Nothing, right?
Absolutely nothing. I've never heard of it before.
Alright, so I picked out this bizarre Asian, obscure Japanese film. I guess Japanese, Asian, same thing. Obscure film that was created in 1991, which is sort of a mix of The Thing, Terminator, Predator, Power Rangers, as well as anything else that I'm sure they ripped off of American films. And I got the feeling...
We ripped them off, maybe.
Probably, yes, this is 91. But I remember wanting to see this because we had seen Hardware a couple weeks ago. And I was like, what? Yeah. I was like, this reminded me of this movie for some reason. I remember watching pieces of this film but never fully seeing it. Because I would try to watch every film that came out way back in the days when I
can see what you're saying about Thing. Maybe a slight Hardware feeling, just the idea that it doesn't stop and it's
an unstoppable killing machine. That's the original, and plus it has a definite aesthetic to itself. Although I don't think the aesthetic of this film is as complex as Hardware is, because Hardware has like a genuine sort of world to it. This is sort of just our world, and then there's a negative zone, which is... It's just basically this film feels like...
It's just a town with no people.
Right, this film sort of feels like, let's have a couple of friends together and let's just shoot a movie. That's what it kind of feels like, because the movie has like three actors and an unstoppable killing machine coming after them.
And a robot guy.
And a robot voice, that's true too. So, I don't remember how initially I found out about this film, but I was definitely into Japanese anime and manga. I still am to a point nowadays, but not as much as I used to be as a kid. And I just knowing about like Japanese culture and their designs, because I'm a character designer as well, so all their character design stuff is fantastic, you know?
Yeah, this is all sick. Yeah,
it's really fantastic looking stuff. I would say some of the designs in here in Zeram are equal to the stuff that are inside of The Thing, the movie that we...
I love the silhouette of the guy in the very beginning, even like of Zeram, like just in the fucking cloak.
Right, yeah.
It's like this big thing.
So how does this film start out? Zeram, 1991.
It starts out very artsy-fartsy, black and white, of people just shooting at this unstoppable thing in a cloak, basically. It's pretty cool, actually. I thought, when I first saw it, I was like, this is going to be like, what the fuck is that called? Iron Man, or whatever, like that movie
Tetsuo the Iron Man, right.
Yeah, it was because it seemed like so like artsy-fartsy at first, but then
that's what I was about to
like a regular movie. Yeah.
And it is pretty graphic, that opening. And it's in black and white, and it sort of reminded me of Kill Bill, the first one, part one, when it went to black and white, so they couldn't get censored, so they couldn't cut the scene since the blood wasn't red, which is a bizarre idea for reasoning for censoring a film. But anyway, it has a black and white, and this film isn't strictly... I wouldn't even call it really a horror film. But it still has that. I
wouldn't call this a horror film.
It's almost it's almost the same way as like the Terminator is not really a horror film, but it sort of has horror elements to it. This less so than the Terminator, because the Terminator.
To me, this felt like a fun adventure that just happened to feature a scary monster.
Yeah, so there's a thing in Japan where it's called kaiju, which is basically like Godzilla, which is giant monsters. Basically, people fighting giant monsters, and they have powered suits or whatever, and they try to attack it. So it's certainly a science fiction, like bare bones sort of action movie. And anyway, the film starts out with Zeram, which is this unstoppable creature. How would you describe what Zeram looks like?
I guess he's supposed to look like a traditional like samurai type of look with the hat and everything. But like obviously a big weird version of it. But then you see that it's actually like the hat is part of his head, and like it's like a kind of like a robot biological body sort of thing. And
it sort of looks like there's a manta ray on his head, like but with a little
Yeah,
white
with a
face
face
on
in
it.
it.
I got to say that the little white face used to bother the shit out of me when I was younger, looking at it because it's probably
Well, you
to
want
me-
to pop it like a pimple or something?
no, it's just that it's basically it looks like a woman's face, but like a vampire face. It's like a very small, white face that's on top of the center of his hat,
Racist.
and it's done. I mean, like to me, that's probably one of the better animatronics I've ever seen in any movie. Like honestly, 'cause
Is it
I was-
animatronic? I couldn't tell if like they were just like every time they zoomed in, they just had like a real person's
Yeah,
face.
that's how good it is. I mean, you could kind of tell that it was always animatronic because I was like, when I first saw it, there's this animated GIF of one of the very first shots in the film was the black and white of the face like opening up its eyes, and it just looks really like unsettling. And they made a GIF of that like online, and they kind of use that in like nightmare kind of scary like websites and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was a cool shot. Yeah.
And it's just one of the best animated like animatronic like robot faces I've ever seen done for a puppet.
All the effects in this movie, even like the jerky like claymation-y ones, I love this type of. I wish movies would do this shit still. It's even though it's not maybe like technically like good, like it looks fakish, but it's just so much better than like I don't know. I hate CGI.
Yeah, no, it's about
Really
about 90. It's 90%. What's that style of effects that you like?
It's like stop motion, like jerky.
Yeah, they got stop
claymation sort of
motion, but they also have the practical effects basically.
Oh yeah. No, it's all practical effects.
They
pretty
do
much.
they do go the whole outrageous way of having a guy electrocuted and you see a skeleton as he's.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's pretty funny. I was like, they went there. Like the guy was turning into a skeleton. I was getting electrocuted.
Yep. And it's yellow electricity and everything. Yeah.
It's so funny. But anyway, so Zeram I guess what we're briefed in is that Zeram is this bioengineered killing machine, and I guess it just must have got loose. And we fast forward. That was just showing us, in the past how it kind of killed all these troopers, and it was in a pretty graphic way. Like, and why I say
stabbing
alien,
them with his head.
right? And why I can say is like
tentacle.
why I compared it a little bit to Alien, because the little face on top of Zeram's hat can spring forward like the
like the mouth
from an alien from the Aliens films.
Yeah.
And it was so funny how like obvious that was like a puppet's face, like because there's part where one of the space marines or whatever the hell this Zeram is killing, the mask is pulled up and it's just obviously a stock face, like a puppet, like a mannequin's face underneath, and then the Zeram just punches right through its face, and it's really graphically gory. And anyway, it pops forward towards I guess the 1990s. Because I was never sure what year this movie took place.
It doesn't say, but you would assume it's the same time that the movie was shot.
Yeah, I was never sure when this movie was to take place because Iria, who's the main character of the film, is like this. She's a space bounty hunter, and I guess she's able to hop from dimension to dimension.
She's like Samus. There you go.
I would say she's more like the crew of Cowboy Bebop, because that's what Cowboy Bebop is. It's they're a bunch of space bounty hunters.
Yeah, but they don't fight. Well, so is Samus though, but Samus fights aliens.
She? I thought
they fight
humans.
humans.
Yeah, what is Samus? I was never sure what Samus Aran was.
Samus is a bounty hunter. She stops.
Is that what she is?
I mean, I've played not all of the games, but I mean, from what I know, she's basically just a bounty hunter that has to stop the Metroid, which is like this energy stealing.
Oh yeah, then I'm pretty sure this movie took from that as well. Because if anyone knows, Samus Aran is a character from a video game from Nintendo called Metroid. And it was definitely a ripoff of Alien, or an homage, I guess. But everything is basically you can certainly see the designs in here certainly borrow off for H.R. Geiger as well, because it's very organic and monstrous looking creatures.
I love like when it getting into like the final form after the skeleton one, when the thing comes out of the hat or whatever.
Yeah, so
it's like this, like
there's these two electricians that work around Japan, and they have these pretty loud looking uniforms, and I like that. That's the thing about this film.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it is. It's like there's a great aesthetic to the film, and here's the thing: the movie's certainly not the best film I've seen, but there's enough in it where I'm like, damn, that was pretty cool. The stuff they did, like this film works as like a really good calling card for sort of. It's interesting in a way that it's like done on a low budget and it's fun, and there's like
Yeah,
cool
and the
aesthetics
characters
to
are
it.
fun too. I really like. I'm not sure if I'm saying it right.
Tepe,
But Kamiya.
Tepe
And
is the
Tepe,
older
like,
one, and Kamiya was no, yeah, no, Tepe
no,
was the
Kamiya is
younger
the
one.
older one.
Yeah, Kamiya is
Tepe is
the
younger
older
one.
one, and Iria is obviously the space bounty hunter. But the thing is with this film is that it has a low budget, but it doesn't necessarily have the inventiveness of like an Evil Dead film. Do you know what I mean? Like Evil Dead had no budget, but there was a
Well,
lot
this
of
is
stuff
very
going on.
straightforward. There's no experimentation. It's just like
Right.
there's a monster you're fighting at the end.
Like the
that's
way with Evil Dead, and it's bad to like compare it straight to Evil Dead because that's a completely different beast to compare it to.
But there's the way it's shot is like
Right.
totally
Evil Dead,
crazy. It's never been done before at that time.
Yeah, Evil Dead masked its budget by using inventive camera work and stuff like that. And this film is very much straight up shot, almost like a kind of a regular film, where you have to see every practical effect on screen itself. So anyway, what we see is that there's Tepe and Kamiya, and they're both electricians, and they're getting called on their work. And like Tepe has a date later on that night, and Kamiya has to see one of these bar women. That, like a funny sideaway gag is that she doesn't give a shit who he is, and he's like, "Oh, somebody's talking about me." And they have to take their bosses call them in. I guess they were doing the Uber electricity work of their own, business. Like
right.
Their company tells them, "Oh, you got to take care of this. Somebody stealing electricity." And what we find out is that Iria is with her partner Bob, who is a sentient machine.
Isn't that basically what like the guy from Power Rangers is? Like
Zordon?
What's his name? Zordon. Yeah.
I guess it could be.
He's like a floating head thing.
Which was weird because I remember seeing. Okay, so when I found out about Zeram, there is this magazine from Japan called Hobby Japan, and what they do is that they chronicle all the I guess every month they chronicle all the figurines and statuettes that Japanese artists make. So it's like based on cartoons or just. I mean, if you see the stuff that the Japanese build, because there's a lot of hobbyists over there in Japan, like they just love buying up shit. I guess I don't know what it is, since they don't have to worry about blowing people up like like us in the US we have to.
Yeah,
they're busy spending all their time making cartoons and making figurines, but I mean it's incredibly.
Well, they're enjoying life while we're not enjoying life.
The closest thing I could say is like, how good like McFarlane toys are. Like, how they look really good.
Oh yeah, no, those are amazing.
Imagine if imagine if the Japanese did those figures 100 times better. That's just how well their stuff is. And there's like a big business of like Robotech or whatever machine sort of.
We have to go there one day. Like,
I do. Yeah, no, that's I would love to.
That would be awesome.
So anyway, I saw this book. It was called Hobby Japan. You could probably find it online. I think it's still in production. It should, because it's such a huge thing over there in Japan. And I remember leafing through it, and I saw this image of this like machine man, like a robot monster, and it had rabbit ears and stuff. And there's a cartoon called Pat Labor or Masamune Shiro stuff that has something to do with that. But anyway, I looked at it and it said Zeram 2. So I was like, what's this? I was like, what's Zeram 2? I was like, is this a film or is this a cartoon? I looked it up and I found out Zeram. So this is obviously later on. This was like in the 90s when I saw this. And Zeram 2 basically had Iria in it, and she was fighting more of these creatures. But I had no idea what the hell it was
Zeram,
about.
though, like a different one, right?
But I think he is in the second one, though. Because I saw the trailer for it last night, and there was like a different version of Zeram in it.
What makes you so sure that Zeram's a he? Why not? What are you, sexist?
That's true. It is a feminine-looking face, but it could be.
Yeah,
I don't even want to.
It does look like the mouth is a vagina. Maybe that's how she procreates.
So anyway, so I saw this image and I was like, "What is?" So I looked up Zeram and I was like, "Wow, cool!" But I never saw the movie. I just saw parts of it, and I was like, "I don't know if I want to watch this movie," but I like the look of it. It's always one of those things where I knew of the movie in the mid to late 90s, and then I just never watched it. But I did watch there was an animated prequel, which I remember like watching this film now, and I was like, oh wait, the cartoon fucked up. Because
how long is the prequel? It's probably short, I'm guessing.
The prequels are like, I think it's 6 episodes, 30 minutes each or something like that. It's a pretty short. Okay. It's a short miniseries. And it does have Iria in it as a main character. Let's explain what kind of character is Iria in this film?
She's pretty bland actually at first, but she's basically just like she's just getting her job done, hunting Zeram and then leaving. And I guess they have all these laws like you're not allowed to kill humans, so they go to this place called the Zone, so that way they don't have to take out human life or whatever.
Yeah, basically she's sort of any stock action hero without any personality in a sense. Yeah. Anyway, so in the cartoon, obviously they drew her much prettier. They drew her with bigger boobs and a bigger butt, I guess.
You know what? Don't body shame. I thought she was perfect the way she was.
I think she was cute in the movie too. Obviously there's a huge fan base over these two movies for, I guess, much like people.
Oh, is there? It's really popular
yeah, in Japan, I guess. Because in here, you know how people love, just the Star Trek people, and they'll follow them forever. Like they really
they'll remake the movies in America like so horribly
with Scarlett Johansson,
right?
Running around with a thong on. Hey, I'd watch that. Anyway, so then I watched the anime. So anyway, the thing that just kind of bothered me now, because in this film it starts out saying, Bob and her are setting up this trap basically to capture Zeram and get a bounty for him. And anyway, so she says Zeram. I've never heard of this. Whatever. They've never met Zeram. They never heard of it. But in the animated cartoon, obviously they've met him. And I'm like, didn't the people who make this cartoon watch the fucking movie and find out she didn't know? Because Zeram completely. Zeram basically kills. Bob was a real guy, and his memories were put into the machine according to the cartoon. And I'm like, well,
oh, really? That's actually awesome.
Yeah, I know, right? So that's why he's just talking to her normally, and but that bothered me.
When the movie started, because I didn't know what I thought we were watching like a horror movie, and so then all of a sudden it gets into this girl and Bob is there and shit. I'm like, what the hell is Alex having me watch right now? Like, what is this?
Listen, you've sent me some weird shit, so I was like, you know what, why not?
No, I mean, I like it and everything, but it's like, this isn't a horror movie. This is like a cartoon sci-fi sort of thing.
It's funny because with horror deconstruction, because we always do horror, but let's go watch some obscure movies too. Like Story of Ricky is technically not a horror film, and we love that shit. You know what I mean?
I love
just
that
what
movie.
The hell? Why not? Anyway, so that's like, if you want to watch that, if you watch this film, you'll have fun. If you watch the animated prequel, why not? And then there's also Zeram 2 that came out, which I am going to definitely watch after I saw this one.
Well, I mean, I got to say, though, Kamiya and Tepe are, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, but
that's right.
They're my favorite characters in the movie. Like, I love their,
and I believe they actually show up in the sequel, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
And they have the same
actors?
Uniforms. Yeah. And
cool.
The thing about Keita Amemiya, the director of this film, he has been around for a long time. He basically is an artist, an illustrator, designer, so you can definitely see from the characters in the film how they design, and even Iria's sort of little suit that she's wearing, it's cool. Everything sort of looks like a live action animation, but you can see now how tough it is to make nowadays. You can make a movie that has some. You can look at the Avengers movies, like with Captain America, and you're like, holy shit! I can believe a guy is jumping from one roof and landing on his shield like nothing. This back then was a little harder, but I thought the Japanese could kind of pull it off a little bit more.
Now they have these 3D cameras that fly after the character, and it's true. You don't even know what the hell these guys did. This movie with fucking nothing, basically, and it's great, and it's better than a lot of things. I mean, I love all the comic book movies that are out right now, but I would rather see practical effects most of the time.
True.
I get why they can't, but
the new Batman versus Superman, that's going to be all practical effects, right? There's nothing.
Actually, I just saw something. Oh, Star Wars. Star Wars has a lot of practical effects in it. The new one.
They really flew in space for those movies. Anyway, for Keita Amemiya, he did a movie I remember seeing before I saw Zeram. I saw this movie called Moon Over Tao a long time ago, which is another cool movie. It's the same.
Over Tao? How do you say that?
Moon Over Tao, Tao. You know how the Tao Buddhist sort of. I don't even know if that's right.
Oh yeah, okay.
Anyway, so Moon Over Tao. I apologize if I said Tao means Buddhism. I have no idea what the fuck it means. Anyway, so Moon Over Tao, the film that I remember watching, was basically this same sort of film, but it took place in ancient Japan. Or is it ancient Japan or feudal Japan? I'm sorry, feudal Japan, where they had so basically what the setup of that film is the same as this sort of. It's basically a Buddhist monk, a young girl, and a samurai are facing an unstoppable alien that comes from.
It's like every fucking movie, like this.
Right. Well, maybe that's just his deal. But anyway, what also happens in that movie is that another female alien comes down to hunt down the alien as well. So it's just like all these people in feudal Japan fighting a monster from the future or from another planet. So
and
like,
is the
cool.
alien that comes to fight the alien bad also? Is it like I Come in Peace where there's like
no?
she's a
good. Yeah, there's two of them. There's actually one good and one sort of mean alien that are attacking the big alien. So.
Oh, okay.
It's an interesting movie, but it has that same sort of weird puppetry in it, and the monster looks like a huge crab monster. So it's pretty cool. It was a fun movie. I remember liking it a lot, just the look of it, because it had that same sort of modern film set in ancient time or in older times.
Japan loves monsters. I mean, Godzilla.
Oh yeah,
all those movies.
I mean, basically, Godzilla came from the birth of nuclear holocaust that happened to them during World War II. So what the fuck, right. They just have this. I can't speak for Japanese people, so I don't know, but you can definitely see that it's definitely comes from that mindset from back then. But these Keita Memiya mostly deals with sort of Power Rangers-esque, like I said before, large monsters, people fighting them sort of aesthetic, and he has this big show called Garo that's out. I'm being very explanatory about everything that this guy's doing, but he's great, and if you look up his artwork, it's amazing. And in this film, why I'm filling up so much time with this,
there's nothing to say.
Yeah. Anyway, no, because basically the film is basically let's escape from Zeram. We can't get caught by Zeram, and there's not really character. There's nothing really character stuff going on in this film. I mean, we know about.
It's really just these two funny. It's just the two funny guys running away from him, and it's fun to watch because they're not like fighters.
And the movie clocks in about an hour. It clocks in about an hour and 38 minutes, which I think is way too long for this movie.
Yeah.
I think they could have taken care of it pretty much shorter. But I think what they should have done, but you can't do it because it's like a movie that's like nearly 30 years old, is that. They should, if they had more fish out of water stuff with it, like it could have been a lot funnier with Iria, like, cause Iria's not from Earth, but then, learning more about her character, but I guess that's not what they really wanted to do, or maybe they just didn't have the budget for it. Like I said, it's just, It's basically 3 characters and 2 other characters, which are like a robot and a monster coming after them. And they're basically just running it out. And they you know what? I'll say this. I would say like the last 10 minutes were pretty intense because I like throughout the film I was like, okay.
Oh, wait, well, cool. when it's in the lab now,
right? Yeah, around? Because what's happening in the film is that Erie gets taken out from what is it called, the zone, and the guys are left in there, so she has to tell them how to defeat Zeram, and then she gets back in.
They have all this equipment. They have equipment to make alternate dimensions. You'd think it would be sturdy, like that it could take one hit.
Yeah, you would think she would just like transport the 2 guys out, maybe our material is too primitive for them or something, because they were basically using materials from here to create the transport device.
That's true, but even the thing that she made the crystal with, and it gets like a little bonk on it, and done. Like
I don't know what I understand, because she destroyed its egg that flies out of space, sort of like Goku, I guess, like a pod from space, from Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball, and like what they could have just done is transported the 3 of them out of there and just let the zone disappear by itself and destroy Zeram. That's all they could have done, which I would have seen as a regular film. They probably would have done something like that. But anyway, it's just leaving all the stuff, and then Zeram spits out these creatures. If it bites some of your cells or your DNA, it can create creatures. Right, and it creates these little...
Which they should have gotten more into that, actually. That would be cool in the cartoons.
Right.
I know they can't, but that's where the thing kind of comes in.
Right, you're right. And I thought, myself, I thought they were a little bit too comedic and goofy looking, those little white creatures that are running around.
Yeah, that was very... from the few episodes of Power Rangers I've seen, like, that was very Power Rangers.
But when Zeram bites Tepe, like, I really thought, like, is Tepe going to turn into a monster or some shit like that? But then he spits out, like, a version of Tepe it's a really gross scene, because it's only, like, half-formed Tepe, and he's, like, white. And
why does he kill it?
Because Zeram was pointing it to go kill the guys, and it wasn't doing it, so he said, fuck you, and he just stomps on his head. It's just funny, but it's really, like, a really disgusting scene, because it's, like, spitting out, like, this green bile and stuff, and you feel sad for it, because, it's just, like...
Yeah.
And it's only half a guy.
And then there's, like, this horrible arm-biting scene, but it's, like, it doesn't fit like the feeling of it, like it's like a comedy kind of lighthearted thing, but then there's like a horrible gore out of nowhere.
Yeah,
like,
because you've forgotten like 40 minutes earlier in the very beginning of the film, it's like smashing guys' legs and arms off and putting like faces exploding. But then you're like, oh, it's sort of a funny karate movie. Because I gotta say, the main actress playing Iria, like Yuko Moriyama, when she's fighting Zeram, there's some scenes like when they're like doing quick cuts, it looks fine. But then when she's fighting Zeram one-on-one and the shot is on them for too long, it's like, did she just learn karate that day? Like, is she like an actor and they just taught her karate? Because she doesn't look like somebody that knows how to fight martial arts like really well, because she's sort of just doing bullshit karate on it. And I was like, this is bad looking. Like, it's really poorly looking fucking fighting and going on in this movie. But but there's obviously other scenes where it's an actor from behind doing like spin kicks, and I was like, that's a good one. That's a good one. Like, what the hell is this? Just have her in the fucking movie. But anyway, she was fine.
Maybe she was ugly or something. So they
just really bad looking. They could have done the thing. Did you ever? You never saw Game of Death with Bruce Lee, right?
No. Were they like?
It was the movie
faces?
where I think Bruce Lee had,
Where they like pop a face onto him or something?
It was a Bruce Lee. So anybody else, obviously you know about it. If anybody else hasn't seen it, there was the Bruce Lee movie before he died during production. Someone where he fights Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Did you not know about this? Oh, basically, there's a scene.
Well, I mean, I didn't. It sounds like it's going to be kind of offensive to people who would be big fans of him.
Oh, yes, it certainly is. But I tell you this, when I saw it, I almost pissed myself laughing at how stupid it was. Because basically, Bruce Lee is in this movie. I think it's called Game of Death, I'm not sure. And they had to cut a movie out of it because obviously there was a version that went to China, and they're like, okay, this is his movie. And in this version, they fucked around with it, so it was like a James Bond-esque sort of film. So basically what the plot was, they used whatever footage they could of Bruce Lee in the beginning of the movie. Right. And Bruce Lee gets killed. I'm doing the finger quotes in the air. Bruce Lee gets killed in the movie. They actually used footage of his real funeral in the fucking movie with his dead body inside the
That's like
casket.
Really offensive.
I can bet you people watching it in the movies going, "Wow, this is a good turnout for the movie," and then other people who actually knew him going, "Oh shit," all fucked up. So anyway,
they see themselves on the film.
So the plot of the film is basically Bruce Lee's character has to wear a fake face during the movie, but they didn't have a scene of him looking in the mirror to go, I gotta change my face. What they did is they had an actor sitting down and he had a cardboard printout of Bruce Lee's face over his own face. Danny,
come on.
When you see that scene, I could not stop laughing at how bad it was because it's basically It
sounds really stupid.
Because it's a movie from the 70s. It's got to be the worst effect I've ever seen in a movie of all time. It's horrible. I mean, it's horrible. I'm going to find it and send it to you. But anyway, I don't even know what the hell I was talking about. Anyway, so they had some fighting or whatever in this movie.
Oh, the girl's not a good fighter, yeah.
She's not a good fighter. They could have used better fighters, but whatever. It works for what it is. But anyway, the last 10 minutes, I got to say, I was really enjoying the intense... are they going to make it or not? Because what's weird, because I saw this trailer for the sequel before I saw this movie. So I obviously knew Iria and Kamiya and Tepe survived the movie.
I'm curious what they do in the sequel since she's only there visiting. How do they come back into it?
I have no idea, but I think they fight a colony of those creatures, like a different world. I think they go to another dimension and fight a bunch of them. But Zeram looks like sleeker, like an updated version, and he looks like he has sort of a Raiden hat on, like a metal hat on instead of whatever, but it looks interesting. But the last 10 minutes of the film, they're basically trying to get Iria back to Earth because the zone is disappearing underneath her in a really cool 80s sort of effect where the world is vanishing behind her and very cartoony. And Zeram is, has evolved the third time into this sort of
his final form.
His final form, which is sort of like a crab monkey or some shit like that, and the guys are fighting it off, and then and I was like, I know she's gonna come back, but I was still like, oh shit, I hope she makes it. So I mean, that's pretty good filmmaking.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what was gonna happen to her, but I felt confident that the two guys weren't gonna die.
Yeah, I was always worried about it because I was never sure because I remember seeing that the arm biting scene and thinking, "Oh shit!" Like, but then not watching the film and going, "No, did they kill that guy?" And whatever. I just kind of left it alone. But I
In
enjoyed
Walking
the film.
Dead, he would have died, but
Yes,
in
of
this,
course.
he's okay.
But I think it's a really, I think it's a fun film. I don't think it's a perfect film. I think there's stuff they could have made it a lot shorter. They could have made this movie an hour and 20 minutes, honestly, if they really.
Yeah, they could have cut out some stuff.
Yeah, they could have cut out a lot of stuff, and they could have fit the length what they had into something more interesting. Like, because obviously they're out in Japan in normal times, and she's out there eating apples.
Well,
and
they
stuff.
didn't have the budget to make it more stuff, so they could have just cut out stuff to make it faster paced and stuff.
It's a fun movie. I enjoyed it. I definitely love the aesthetic of the film. I like that it's sort of this weird Japanese version of a Terminator film. And
they mentioned Terminator in Wiki. It's saying he was also inspired by the Terminator to create an unstoppable villain which changes its form but never dies.
Certainly, and the design of Zeram is based on, like you said, one of those old samurais that had they had like those basket hats. I don't know what the terminology is, but if you've ever seen those sort of old
rice
Japanese
hats? Am I wrong? Rice hats?
What are they called?
I'm wrong. I think I'm wrong. I said rice.
Rice. That might
it
be
reminds me of like rice farmers or something. Like, am I totally wrong? I'm probably totally wrong.
It's sort of those sort of hats made out of loose wood or something like that. But I definitely know what you're talking about. And if you've seen those kind of old school Japanese samurai movies when they fight those guys in the fucking bushes, they have those sort of weird basket hats on. Anyway, I enjoyed it. I would give this film, I was originally going to give it a 6, but I'd give it a 7 because it is entertaining and the graphics are really cool. And it has one of those Raimi-esque sort of we made this movie together kind of films. A bunch of people, like just a handful of people made this movie.
What's your 7 what? 7, what's your rating?
A 7 out of 10 yelling at your poorly made clone of a man you bit on the arm to get them by gesturing at it violently, and then when it doesn't, when it rather would spit up green bile, you stomp it to death.
Okay, I'm gonna give it. I agree with you. I will give it a 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. Dramatically driving a crane with like cool music playing.
That reminded me of Austin Powers, but go ahead.
I really like that scene. I thought that was great. Dramatically driving a crane, and it's like all this music. It's so intense, and then like immediately getting knocked out of the crane.
What do you think was that white roach they ate? You think they wouldn't, like in other dimensions, just make something that looks good instead of like a
I don't know, but that part was worrying me. I was worried that he was gonna like get like
mutate
sick or yeah.
That scene alone was worth seeing Kamiya like almost vomit looking at Tepe.
Yeah.
That was pretty funny. Anyway, with that, Danny, what's the final word?
Leather seat cushion.
The horror deconstruction.